Count him down.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Fortitude. Listen, we're on a new platform. Poor old JD Malone, man. He won't know any difference, Todd. Me and you, this is going to be Chad. Chad's probably going to be, he'll be lighting me up. Anyway, listen, everybody, we are tickled to death to have JD Malone on.
That's right.
You may know who JD is. You've seen him on the Unashamed and podcast in the Duck Call Room. And more than that, you've seen him on national news wearing the gospel symbols hat. That actually, the man that he got that from, Brian Robinson, who now we've partnered with JD. He does all of our merch. He does everything. He's helping Chad with his stuff.
I just took my hat.
Hey, there you go.
Hey,
And Brian is an awesome dude. But anyway, everybody, so JD, he became famous by wearing Brian's gospel symbol hat on when he was over in the Olympics. His son, Brody, won the bronze in gymnastics over there. And so through all that, and then Brian's connection with JD was how Al and them got him over on their podcast. And and that same connection through Brian and JD is how we got in touch with you. JD, welcome to the program. Todd, good to see you too, brother. But JD, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all having me on.
Hey, listen, everybody. So just so you know, real quick, I don't know the full story. I'm just going to tell everybody, hands down, I know a little bit, and I've shared that with Todd. And when you go on a podcast like Unashamed, they're pretty structured and it flies, doesn't it, JD? I mean, you'll sit down there, and I mean, 30, 40 minutes, it's gone. And you'll see the same thing today. But, so, by the way, can you all see the recording about how long we're going?
we're live and recording.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I want to make sure you all can see that. And that way, JD, if you get to where you need to go, or we want to be respectful for your time. If you finish up in 25 minutes and ready to go, hey, we're down with that. But if you want to go an hour and 25, we're good with that too. So it's up to you. So I just want to give everybody a very, very quick background. Everybody knows now that we focus a lot on discipleship, right, Todd? That's
right.
Desperate discipleship. And when I read Al and Lisa's book, Desperate Forgiveness, the thing that came to mind was desperate discipleship. I mean, that's what we all need. We're all desperate for that discipleship. It's like Bill McCartney said back in the day, Promise Keepers, every Timothy needs a Paul, every Timothy needs a Paul, every Paul needs a Barnabas, every Barnabas needs a Paul, and every Paul needs a Timothy.
That's right.
So it's reciprocating. But anyway, JD lost his wife with 4 children, right, JD?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Very early in her life, and left him to raise 4 very young children on his own. And I want JD to have an opportunity to tell. Todd and I wanted to give JD an opportunity to tell that story. And but so Todd, if you want to kind of tee him up and kind of get him going, man, I'm going to let you have a little bit of this too.
Well, we were just talking before we came on, and I honestly, I've heard more right now. I've been holding off to hear it firsthand than here or there. So if you want to just jump in and tell everybody about yourself, start with how and where and when you were born, and work forward from there. Hey, I'm ready to hear it.
Well, my name's JD Malone. I grew up as you can tell, I'm definitely not from the north. Grew up in a little town called, actually it's Watauga, Tennessee, but was my address. But that's kind of like the outskirts of Elizabethton. Grew up with 2 wonderful parents. Couldn't have asked for better as far as just teaching you hard work, principles, morally right from wrong, very loving. They worked, man. They were workaholics, and my dad passed away in 2000, in February of 2000. Brody was born on January 7th in 2000, and I lost my dad February 21st or third. So I didn't have him as that rock that a lot of, I won't say a lot, but some people are blessed with, fathers to look forward to it, for advice, but
That's right.
didn't have, didn't really, I had the wisdom that he,
Left you
imparted
with.
on me. Yeah. But just a great family. Grew up playing ball, a lot of ball. Grew up on a tobacco farm, so we raised burley tobacco. Some of my fondest memories are in the tobacco field. Just pretty normal childhood, actually. Church was not a great big thing in our family. My mother was she's very religious, always had a great relationship with God. Took me to church when I was young, and then somewhere around middle school, the church thing kind of faded away. But I was blessed enough. So we lived what I called a compound. It's if you grow up in the hills of East Tennessee, families live kind of in one spot. So
That's right.
we lived at the top of the mountain. My uncle and aunt lived in the middle of the mountain, and then my dad's old home place where they all grew up, there was 9 of them grew up in a 900 and some square foot house. That was down at the
JD,
foot of the mountain.
I'll tell you
Yeah,
what
go
I
ahead.
call that. I call that a hillbilly because that's what I'm at. I was raised in southern
Okay.
West Virginia, and you
Okay.
ain't far west.
Yeah.
I get it. Todd's from Alabama, and that so he's from part of that Appalachia too. So brother, we get
Yeah.
it, and I love it, man. That's awesome. And the compound, I wish we'd go back to the compound.
Well, that's my goal. That's one of my prayers, but we'll have to see if my other 4 accommodate me on that. But yeah, so my uncle that lived in the kind of down in the middle of the mountain there, he was and still is. He's 80. I think Uncle Gene's 86. Just one of the most godly men you will ever meet in your life. I can remember I've got just the fondest memories of him mowing and singing. He was at church, he was an elder, so he was at church every Wednesday, every Sunday, a couple of days through the week too. I mean, he made that church go around. It's a small Church of Christ, so I grew up in a Church of Christ. I don't even know what they call it, but I've got great memories of the little guy standing up there with that little old tune harp thing,
Yeah.
he'd
Right.
blow it.
Yep.
And then you'd all start, the old rugged cross, and he'd say the old rugged cross, hymn number 53, and then he'd blow that thing, and we'd all start singing. But I was fortunate enough to have my Uncle Gene who would, take me. I'd walk down the bottom of the hill, and I would ride with my cousin Karen, which was his daughter, and we'd go to church. And I guess about when I was 14, 15 years old, started going pretty regularly. And then my mom and dad started joining some. And then I guess I was 16 years old. Just felt that calling, our pastor's name was Wayne Boswell. We called him Wendy Boswell. So I was, how you feel that tug, God calling you. So they had the
Absolutely.
altar call, and I went up and gave my life to Christ and got baptized. We didn't do like baptism, like plan a day. All right, it's kind of like Phil and them's church. You gonna
Right.
get baptized. They do a baptism. You want
Every
to get
day.
baptized? We're gonna do it there.
That's right.
You're not, what, you're
we
not
go-
going to put somebody through a class before you allow them to get baptized?
Well, that's subject, but I think you should know
Yeah.
what you're doing.
I get that. But
I have a little reservations about Sunday schools or like VBS with these kids. It really sometimes it bothers me. I think kids know, but I also think that they get it's emotion based at the time. But felt the altar call. To get back to my story, went up, gave my life to Christ, was baptized in a cold baptismal pool in the church because they didn't have the heat on. And a funny story, the mic's on, right? Our
Right.
preacher's got a hot mic on, and he goes, "Ooh, it's cold." He said, "I think things are going to shrivel for you, son, but just bear with me. It'll be worth it." So but here's the great thing. I hear the whole congregation, which was probably 75 people out there, dying laughing because he's hot mic'd, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So that was one of the best, best baptismal stories I've heard. But
That's awesome.
it was good. Um, from there, I wish I could say that everything changed for me, and it did. I've always had, I don't know if you call them demons, or I've always battled certain things, and
Oh yeah. We all do.
yeah, oh yeah, I agree with that. Women was one of my weaknesses, and a 16-year-old boy. Um, so to say that everything was great and I tried to live a sin-free life, it wasn't. It wasn't that way for me. Um, I always, I the question on, are we born inherently good or inherently bad? I've always thought that, or thought about that. I've always known, and I kind of give my mom credit for that. But I've always kind of known God, and I've always known right from wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you're doing something wrong,
And you know
and
it.
you get, and you know it, you get that strong conviction. So I've always had that, and it's scary because I'm a school teacher and teach high school, and you see that, man, with kids, they don't know, like, the right from wrong. There's a huge gray line for them. It never was that way for me. It was black and white. I knew it and still do to this day.
I'm with you.
But ended up going, meeting I met my wife, Tracy, at a JUCO college. She showed horses there as well as I did. And it, so Brody was on a called The Undaunted Life with,
Oh, he was on there. That's cool.
yeah, and I can't think of the guy's name. I listened to their podcast quite a bit. Met him actually at Phil and them's down at the Lair. Great guy, but he was talking to Brody, and Brody, they were talking about soulmates, and he's like, "Well, I just don't, know if I believe in soulmates." Brody was telling him his mom and I story, and I don't know, and I've explained this to my kids. I can't explain it. I don't know how you know that one is the one, but I'm like, I was engaged to a girl at the time when I went, because I went to college, quit, figured out I need to go back to college in a hurry. You know what I mean? So, ended up going back to college, went to this JUCO college, and, like I said, I was engaged to a wonderful girl, and I laid eyes on Tracy. She was, back then you used to have to sign up for classes. There wasn't nothing on the computer. You used to have to, go physically sign in. So I'm signing in, or I'm standing in line, and I see her, and I'm like, whoa. I said, I'm in trouble. And my roommate's standing beside me, and he said, "What do you mean? We've not even signed up." I said, "You see that girl right there? I'm going to marry that girl." And he said, "Wait, I thought you were engaged." I said, "I am. That's why I'm in
I'm in
trouble."
trouble.
So there was obviously physical attraction, but it was a solid friendship for over a year. And I'm sure that played a part in the demise of my, relationship with the lady that I was engaged to. But when I tell you soulmate, she was mine. And we were blessed enough to have 4 wonderful children. And then in 2008, so Briley, my daughter, was born in, she is a May the 4th be with you, baby. She hates that, but she was born in May 4th, 2008. And Trace, Trace was put on this earth to be a mother. I mean, that was her calling. That was her gift. She was just a wonderful mother. So she had breastfed all of our kids, and she was doing the same with our fourth, our daughter. And she come to me and she's like, something's not right. And she's like, feel this. And it was a knot. And I said, that don't feel like mastitis. You nurse 4 babies and you're going to get mastitis. And she knew what mastitis was. And I said, you better go. She was having some weird discharge. And I said, you need to go to the doctor. Not thinking anything. I mean, my wife's in her, middle 30s. Let's see, she was 33 years old. So, she goes to the doctor, they do a biopsy and call her in, said, look, we got the results. You want to come? We need to talk to you. So I'm still not thinking anything terribly bad. So we go to the hospital and I can still see the hospital room, the whole 9 yards. And they said, well, we've got the results back from the biopsy and it's cancer. And I'm thinking, 33 years old, cancer? I was like, are you sure? And they said, yes, we're positive and we think it's a very aggressive type of cancer. But we want to run some more tests. So, that whole ride home, Tracy's mom and dad had came to keep the kids while we were at the doctor. And I just, I was in disbelief. It was just shock. I mean, I can remember I had to pull in the parking lot there at Zaxby's and just cause I was tore up.
Oh, absolutely.
And, my wife's scared to death. I'm scared to death. And, I told her, I was like, look, and this is probably one of the most eye-opening things that kind of where I learned to walk in God's timing. But I looked at her and I said, there is no way God's going to take you from this earth. You don't need to worry. I said, this is just a bump in the road. I said, we're going to get through this. And I said that with all confidence because I thought, my God, wasn't going, how are you going to take a woman that's in her 30s with 4 kids, one of the best mamas ever been planted on this earth? How are you going to take her? And so it just kind of, you follow protocol. My wife was so intelligent, did her own research on what type of cancer. We found out it was a HER2 new positive type cancer. It was stage 4 when they found it. And we found a couple different protocols. We went to the oncologist. She felt very safe with the oncologist we had here. It was a woman, very, very sweet lady, very good doctor. And it was after that, that was July 8th of 2008. And Tracy passed away 2012 on December 21st. So, and it was a hard fought battle. I can't even begin to tell you. My wife didn't want to leave here. But through those, a little over 4 years there, I would love to tell you that I had no doubts. There was some anger towards God for all of it, for what my family was going through. Now, you recall me telling you that I was saved and baptized, and I knew who God was, knew God, came to earth, died for our sins, and will be resurrected again. I know that. And I've been on, I probably one of the first podcasts, or the first podcast I did was with Chad Wright and Blake Wright. And I explained it. Yeah, that was probably number 5 or 6. I taught Blake I had Blake was one of my students in high school. Oh yeah, yeah.
You know that Chad was just on The Unashamed with
yeah,
Chad Robichaud?
oh, yeah. So Chad and Blake live probably 30 minutes from where I'm at now here in Georgia. Oh yeah, yeah.
Man,
love the Wright family.
Yeah.
They're good
he
people.
he is something else, that guy.
He's something else.
Conversation
all right.
for another day.
Yeah. But I explained to them, that whole, it's kind of cheesy, I guess, but the whole footprints in the sand when you're, where you're holding Jesus's hand. And that's pretty much how that whole entire 4 years was for me. I had a lot of faith in God, talked to God a lot, prayed, had a good relationship with God, but still was missing the faith part as far as I kept thinking my prayers was for the healing. Okay.
Right.
My prayers was for God not to take my wife. Instead of God have your will be done. And the blessings that come out of that 4.5 years, looking back on it, and even, Tracy and I even talked about it because, we went, she was at Sarah Cannon Institute for on 4 different trials. So we would drive up, stay with one of my best friends, and she would have treatment and we would drive back. So a lot of what I call windshield time, I got to spend an incredible amount of time with her. And it was, I can't even explain it, as a man, when you think of intimacy, you think of the physical part, right?
Right.
Well, this was not even, my wife, it hurt for her to crawl into the bed, for me to crawl into the bed. The sheets hurt her when she was on some of those chemos. And so the physical part was not there, but man, I wouldn't trade anything for that intimacy that we got and grew close. I just can't even begin to tell you. That was as fulfilling for me as any physical could ever be.
Amen.
It was, so that was a huge blessing. The blessings that we've saw that I have seen come from Tracy's sickness. The little town we're in is riddled with cancer, especially breast cancer, or the little town that we were in. I've moved several times, but now I'm back for my calling as a teacher. But we're still not in that little town where they get their water source from. But just because of Tracy having her breast cancer, I know 2 of her pretty close friends got checked and was getting checked because of Tracy's illness. And 2 of them has had cancer, but found it quick enough to where it was, and they contribute that to Tracy.
Awareness.
So,
awareness. Yes.
Awareness. 2 saved lives, from one, I don't really want to call it a sacrifice, but it's like you said, Todd, awareness,
That's right.
So I guess long story short, after she passed away, I mentioned the physical, I had to make a choice, first of all, on what I was going to do because I teach agriculture. And my days, at least 10 hours a day. I've not been getting to work as early, but it's usually 7 o'clock. Most of the time it's earlier. I try to get to school about 6:30. We've got a huge program. So you're putting in long hours. So I had to, after she passed away, I had to make the decision on what I was going to do. So I was blessed enough I resigned, and I didn't want anybody else raising my babies. I wanted to raise my babies.
That's right.
So I resigned and I made that pretty much my full-time job. Now my wife and I published a rodeo magazine for about 13 years. So I kept that going for a couple years after she passed and sold it. It just wasn't the same. She was way better at as far as the laying out and stuff of the magazine as I was. I actually had to hire some help to get it done. But I was blessed enough to do that. And there was I can't describe it. They say that when men lose their wives, that they're looking to replace their wife pretty quick. They say they get remarried very quickly. Well, that was, I found a lady who her name was Lynn, had lost her husband. So we shared that common interest. But when I tell you that all the, I mentioned earlier that I knew the right from wrong part, right?
Yep.
That pretty much went out the window with the physical stuff. I mean, I can make all the excuses in the world, I didn't really have that physical intimacy for 4.5 years. And I mean, like, I could tell you, it was just lack of discipline and absolutely just not listening to God. So that turned into the first year and a half was great with that relationship. I'm talking about incredible. She was, I guess, maybe a distraction, which she was much more than a distraction, but she had she put her place up for sale. I put my place up for sale. And we said, whichever one sells, we're going to move to the other one. So my place sold first and we moved to her house. And everything changed. Like, the whole relationship changed.
The dynamic completely changed.
The dynamics. Now, mind you, we're not married. We're just living in sin, living together. Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Everything you can do wrong. I was checking every box. Yeah. Just like, yeah, it was terrible. And knowing it all along and even feeling that guilt and at one point just telling her, like, look, we can't do this anymore. This is it's wrong. We need to get married. And so we got engaged, lived together for a little while. It just didn't work out, dude. You've got 4 kids. She had a daughter that was the same age as my middle son. And so I admire and commend anybody that has a blended family. It's just, that's one of the, do you really, Todd?
Yes, I do.
It's tough, brother, man. I commend you. Golly. Like it was horrible. So
As a child, I'm a child.
are you?
Yeah.
So my
You're
kids
right.
got to.
You nailed it, JD. You nailed it.
So, okay, I do want to, I've seen blended families work, but it is under a godly umbrella. When the marriage puts they put God first, then spouse, then kids, and everybody's on the same page that this is what, this is how we're going to do this, then it works. I've seen it work, and I've seen it just be incredible, because that could be a huge blessing. I mean, you've got kids that are missing parents, and I could see where the blessing would be, but that ain't the way I done it. That wasn't even close. It was really, really hard on all 5 kids, really. I'm a very
Structured.
I wouldn't call it, Todd, I wouldn't call it structured, because I am a loose cannon, buddy. Like, I'm a fart in a whirlwind. I'm as lost as a ball in tall weeds about half the time.
That's why you're on here. You fit right in.
Listen, I'm dating a girl. Just started. I've not dated in 6 years, and I just started seeing somebody, and she's like, that's what I love about you. You're not very organized and not very structured. And she's like got every hour of her day planned out. And it's like I told her, I was like, look, I have spent money on plane tickets that I have not, because me being cheap, not buy the insurance, not getting those plane tickets back because I got a kid get sick and you can't take a trip, Yep. I've learned to take it day by day. And I think, every morning God allows me to wake up, I'm blessed, but I'm taking it a day at a time. I'm not much of a planner, but I do expect my kids. No, go ahead.
I want to jump in here just real quick. excuse me. When you were going through all that with Tracy, when when you got that news of what was happening, was there somebody God put in your life at that time, your dad or your uncle that you've talked about, that you just grabbed a hold of them and they just let you cry on their shoulder? They didn't have all the answers, but they were there to hold on to you through all that.
Yeah. So a lot of it's been left out. I've always tried to include it in any interviews I've done. But so Tracy's mom and dad, because we had the two little ones and then we had the two that were in school, they actually ended up moving in with us. And my mom, after Tracy passed, my mom was a huge part of helping as well raise those kids. But yeah, my mom's always been my rock, especially since my dad passed away, right after Brody was born. And she's very biblically sound. Like, she's in the Word every day, every morning, and has been for the longest. She's got an incredible prayer life. She's just been my rock. And my in-laws and I went through some rocky times because, like I say, they were living with us. And then after Tracy passed away, I kind of wanted to start a new normal, and them moving out was incredibly hard because they was so attached to my two younger kids. They love all my grandbabies, but they would, like, they're two of the best people you could ever possibly imagine. They were mourning and going through. They were angry because they lost their daughter. She was 37 years old when she passed away. Her birthday's the 26th of December. She passed away 5 days before her birthday. So, they're angry. I'm angry. Everybody's pissed. And it just didn't make for a good dynamic at the time. It was actually, it was just a cocktail for disaster. But some praying and just them really learning how to mourn their loss. And my Nana, or we call her Nana, that's Tracy's mama, striking up that relationship with God and leaning on God more. They are like such a blessing in my life. So yeah, to answer your question, John, I had my mom. I call him my brother. His name's Tom Bourne. He lives in Middle Tennessee. He was there. He was the one that I bent my ear, I'd pick up the phone and like, man, you can't believe this. So yeah, I had friends. I'm a loner, like,
by nature. Yes.
Yeah. Like, I can probably, if I can count 5 people that I could call on, that might be too many, as far as men are concerned. I've got a lot of friends, but like, it takes a lot for me to confide in someone and to go to. Now, I've learned to do it more since I've kind of got plugged into this new church, because the thing that was lacking there was the biblical guidance. Right.
That's right.
I was having to kind of figure a lot of that stuff out on my own. And I wasn't turning to the Word like I should have. And so thus the string of bad decisions that I had made. But yeah, I leaned on God a lot. I talked to God a bunch. I'm part of a little group. They're called the Sons of Thunder, and I'll drive down the road and I'll just be talking, and there won't be anybody in the vehicle, and I'm just talking away to God, but they swear up and down they're going to make a bumper sticker for me. I'm not crazy. I'm just talking to God. So,
hey, if you get one, send one this way. I'll take it.
I promise. So,
I need one too.
There's 2 guys that are in that group that they could have one made in about 5 minutes, and it looked professional.
Hey, we both know a guy could have one in probably 2.3 seconds if we just ask him.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
JD, one of the things, and I get it, your in-laws there with you and that happened and you couldn't really get away. That was your home.
Yeah.
When my wife and I, we were babies, man. I mean, I was in the military. We lost our daughter at 5 months. And here my wife, we're 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
So the best thing that we ever done was when that happened, the Navy had transferred us back to West Virginia. And then once she passed, it was only for a 6-month transfer anyway. But when she passed, my wife and I asked to be stationed in Scotland. We wanted to get as far away from everybody as we could. And back then you didn't have cell phones. There was no email, So we isolated ourselves from anybody and everybody basically that knew us. And it was one of the best things we ever done because we had to rely on each other. We couldn't run to mom or dad or sister or brother or friend. We only had each other. We had nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best things we ever done. So I get it, brother. I totally get it.
Yeah. That time that I got to raise my kids, like I can't even begin to tell you how close of a family. Now I've got 3 boys and my daughter's the youngest, so I'm not telling you that it's all, rainbows and flowers because I mean, I raised boys like they're men now. So there's a lot of testosterone and but they'd fight a buzzsaw for each other. I mean, we're a very close knit family group. And
that's going to take one heck of a dude that she brings home, bro.
Oh man, they've already, trust me, if you see this gray in this beard right here, I don't have any in my hair much, but this beard's, they tease me about being Santa Claus, playing Santa Claus for Christmas, but yeah, they are, and they're very protective and rightfully so, which is a good thing,
them.
But
yeah, good for them and good for her.
Yeah.
In this day and time.
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I know. Funny story about that. She won't ever listen to this podcast. So, she got in trouble because I wouldn't let her date. Right. I said, you can't date till you're 16. Well, she's 15 and she's talking to this boy. And then so she starts doing some things that she shouldn't do, like got her in I'm talking about a mess of trouble.
We've been there, bro. I've been there with one of mine.
It like she's not a bad kid. She don't drink, she don't smoke that I know of. She's pretty raw and honest. But she just felt like she had to see this little boy. And it didn't matter that climbing through the window, sneaking out was part of that, going to see this little boy. So when I tell you I had to talk her middle brother off the leg, like Dad's mad, like I'm mad. I laid up here because I get their phones are to be put up. Like she's 16 years old, almost 17. Phones go in my room at 9:00, But that don't stop the computers and all that the iPads that you didn't know that was going on. Yeah. But so I'm scrolling through her phone and I see a picture and it's time stamped. And when I tell you rage, like, there's a godly anger that God tells us that it's okay to get angry as long as it's, a godly, something that would anger God. I was angry on like DEFCON 14, like I had done. I'm laying into bed scrolling and I just feel it. If you ever see my ears get red, like, you know something, he ain't happy. So I go to get up out of the bed, like I'm going to this boy's house and it's 3:00 in the morning now, and something like I've got my clothes on and I'm starting down the steps and something says, JD, you just need to breathe a little bit. Listen to me. So I walk back up the steps, take my clothes off, get back in the bed. Well, I didn't even say anything. She didn't get her phone back. I was like, you ain't getting your phone back. And I get real quiet. I've learned that not to feed that emotions, right? Because those emotions are human. But so I didn't say a whole lot to her for about 2 days. And then finally I confronted her because I was calmed down. And then when her brothers find out, like, they're like in the truck, I'm like, you put it in park right now, you know. So had that talk with, I made him and his dad come over, and I talked. And you know, you can't do a whole lot if so I'm giving the whole, you know, we date to marry here, right? So if you're dating, the only reason for dating is to find the one. And I looked at him, I said, I can tell you right now, brother, you are not the one.
The one.
And I said, I'm not raising babies. I said, I don't know what y'all have done. I said, but you better hope that I'm not raising babies, period. And both of them are extremely good athletes, right? I mean, this kid's 6'4", 6'5", just a heck of a baseball player. And Briley's an incredible volleyball player. So I'm giving them the whole dad speech, you know, you fixing to mess up your lives, and this ain't the way God intended it to be. God intended it to be between one man and one woman. And I'm telling y'all that you think you're in love, and I'm not doubting your feelings. You are feeling probably a little, you know, like love. I'm not discarding that, but this ain't it. This ain't the way this goes. And his dad's there, and I'm chewing on both of them. I'm chewing on his dad. I'm chewing on him. And, you know, the boy's in tears, and my daughter's crying because I'm making her stand there. And we're in my leather shop. So I finally, I'm like, look, I've said my piece. I'm done. Y'all aren't to see each other, talk to each other. Well, if only it was that easy, right?
That's right.
Anyway, there was some things that had happened there, but here's the way God works, right? So the boy texts me and tells me, you know, I do FCA at our school. So I'm a huddle leader, I guess, or sponsor, whatever you call it. So we have FCA every Thursday in my room.
Excellent.
Thursday mornings. And so I noticed he was coming. And then we've got a great, like, our pastor, he does what they call biscuits with the boys of the morning. So he does it with baseball. And the first thing that I've left that part out. I went and talked to James, like the day after, which James is our pastor, which is Chad Wright and Blake Wright. That's their pastor. If you ever heard Chad's story about the guy praying where Chad was,
in the
they
barracks?
were fighting the demons off in that. Well, that's James. That's old Pastor
Wow.
James.
He walked the hallways while he was praying.
Yeah, while he was praying. That's right.
That's right.
Same guy. So incredibly blessed to have a lot of godly wisdom and help you see through things. But he's got 2 daughters as well, which is also a blessing. So he tells me, hey, you know, this kid, he's been coming to Bible study. And I'm like, that's fine. That's good. I have forgiven him, and I've prayed for him. I'm praying for both of them. Well, started building on this kid. Now, this kid's mom and dad ain't been coming to church, so he starts bringing his sister, who is like 10, to church with him. And they come to find out, he was trying to figure out which, because we have 2 church services, right? He was trying to figure out which church service that we was going to be at, so he could go to the other one. Yeah. So, but he had been coming, and like he felt God just working on him. And that boy got saved and was baptized last Sunday. And when
Awesome.
I tell you, it was a genuine, like, you could just sit. Now, I ain't going to say he's the one for my daughter, but if it took all this to have eternal salvation and see him in heaven one day and save his life and possibly his sisters and maybe even impact his mom and dad, man, I'll go through that. I'll go through all that anger and stuff. And, you know, it's funny how God works like that. But I did not see that in my rage. That was not even part of what I was thinking.
Nope.
It was to hurt a father who would allow their son to come get their daughter in the middle of the night, you know, somebody else's daughter. So
You know,
Well,
two things come to mind when I've been listening to you talk tonight, JD. And two of them come back to verses in the Bible and the scripture that we reference here quite often. And one was whenever you said that, you know, after you and Tracy had left the oncologist with the, you know, with the news and you had to pull off, and the fear that came over you. One of my favorite verses, and Todd knows this is because I've lived my whole life, it seems like, in fear. Some fear of another. Some kind of fear seems like it's dominated me my whole life. And, fear of failure, or fear of unacceptance, whatever. But in 2 Timothy 1:7, it says, "For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." But you really need to read verse 8 with that in order to get the whole thing. And this really sums up what you were saying and what you've been talking about. Be not thou therefore ashamed of the testimony of our Lord, nor of me his prisoner, but be thou partaker of the afflictions of the gospel according to the power of God. And then the other one and this is Lisa. She actually wrote this, and she put this verse in my Bible when she and Al signed it. And that's Philippians 4:13, and it says, "I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me." And we think of that, and people want to say, "Well, you can't go lift 400 pounds. You can't go bench press 400 pounds if you can't go lift a truck." That's not what that's saying. What that's saying is JD can go through what he went through with his wife and come out victorious. He can go through what he went through with his daughter and come out victorious. A young man gave his life to the Lord.
Life. Amen.
So, man, that's what this podcast is all about, JD. This is awesome. And that's why we are very organic and we're not scripted. Because I don't want to be. And you mentioned Chad Wright, and I can't believe I didn't see your episode, because I watched Chad almost since Chad started his podcast.
I think it's episode 5 or 6. So
I might have come in after that, but I'm going to tell you, that's one thing that I love about Chad Wright. I thought there could be no more authentic person on this face of this earth other than the Robertsons. But when you get to know or listen to Chad Wright, boy, he gives everybody a run for their money. Yeah, he's a different cat, is the way I put it. Chad is.
I wish Blake. So Blake's his little brother, and when I tell you there's more wisdom, like if I had half of Blake's wisdom, and it's all biblical, like this, you see people have like I know a lot of this stuff. I like to think. I mean, I'm no scholar, but I like to think I know my way around the Bible a little bit. But he applies that, and that's the wisdom part, right? You can have knowledge, but if you don't apply it, there's no wisdom to it. So Blake is, golly, man, I'm telling you, if y'all ever get a chance to talk to Blake. I mean, Chad's wonderful, and he is very authentic, and he is a character, and that is exactly who Chad Wright is. Yeah. It's not a put on, but Blake's very quiet, very, he only talks when he's about, like y'all remember, I know y'all will, E.F. Hutton, when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen. Well, that's the way I am with Blake, and Blake's young. I mean, man, he's young. Like I say, I taught him. I had him in high school. He was one of my favorite kids. But yeah, that's the whole. That's neat, because you see Chad and his. I don't want to say character, but his persona, the things that he's done. You remove Blake from that, and you don't have the platform that Chad's got right now. Chad doesn't have that platform because Blake's the one dude that brought Chad to Christ. I mean, wow. Yeah.
There you go.
So, I mean, you think about, and here Blake is just, and enjoying, and they're incredibly blessed. And Blake wouldn't have it any other way. And Chad's got all these accolades. I mean, Chad, dude, he's a warrior, man. He's a Navy SEAL. The thing that makes Chad great is that he's real, right? Like you were talking about a minute ago, fear, and you've battled some sort of fear. That's probably not something you've shared with a lot of people, right?
No, I've kept that. I've shared it more since we've started this podcast. And I've got to know Todd.
Yeah.
I've shared it more, but before then, no, I would. And to be honest with you, JD, I probably really didn't know what it was. I had never really identified it until probably the last 3 years or so.
So
when God revealed it to me, John, you're living in fear. You got to let that go.
Yeah, that's great that he revealed it to you, because a lot of times what the devil does is he takes that fear, and that's his, because we are men, and not all, but I would say, dare to say most, they're kind of loners.
Yes.
Some people are very, very social. That's not me. And I'm not, it's not that I'm stuck up. It's just like, it's just not me. But the devil will take that, and I've had these thoughts. I'm not putting words in your mouth, John, but like, man, I can't believe I'm thinking that. Why am I scared of doing this? I've got to be just the biggest coward, or, and I didn't even know that other men had those same thoughts. I read a book, some of the best friends I've got is that part of that group, Sons of Thunder, and I don't even know if I have it. Let's see my Emmett Fox book, but it's called John Eldridge. It's a John Eldridge book.
Oh yeah.
So we did, Wild at Heart.
Yes.
So we all read it, and I'm reading this book, and old Eldridge is laying it out, like, he needs to change the oil in his car, but he basically wanting to procrastinate, put it off. The procrastination, the fear, all that stuff. I was like, holy crap, I'm not by myself. No, I'm not the only one rowing this boat. Not at all.
That's right.
But old Satan, man, he uses that. He festers that up on the inside of us to make us think that we're no good, right? That we're pieces of crap, that we should have done this or that. Yeah.
To have you come on here and say, you know what, man, I got struggles. I'm a man. I got and I've told my wife I'm more open and transparent with my wife now since I rededicated my life to the Lord. I pastored for a couple of years, brother, and went in the desert for 2 years. My story's on here. It ain't nothing special. But I'm more transparent with my wife now than I ever have. And she told me one day, she said, I am so thankful that you have shared this with me, because now I know when I'm out in town or I'm out in public, what men are saying or thinking about me when I walk by or I'm in the store.
Yeah.
And because men, the male species struggles with things that for the most part, the female doesn't. And so, and another thing that God's revealed to me, I'm going to read the 2 Corinthians 7 through 10, so just bear with me. It says, unless I should be exalted above measure through the abundance of the revelation, there was given unto me a thorn in the flesh, the messenger of Satan, to buffet me, lest I should be exalted above measure. For this thing I besought the Lord thrice, 3 times, that it might depart from me. And he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, I rather glory in my infirmities, that the power of Christ may rest upon me. Therefore, I take pleasure in infirmities, in reproaches, in necessities, in persecutions, in distresses, for Christ's sake. For when I am weak,
then he is strong.
I am strong.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're about to preach on this podcast tonight, Todd.
I like it.
And here's the thing, Todd's wife, she's going to be shocked, because the whole podcast I've had my Bible out. She gets on to me all the time, because a lot of times I look it up on my phone, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was doing a while ago. Yeah. I was trying to find that sermon.
Amanda gets mad at me. But just think of that. If that's just like the lame, was it the lame man or the blind that they came to Jesus and said, why is this man blind? Or why is he lame? Was it lame
Did his parents sin or did he?
Sin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he said, neither one. He's the way he is so that God can be glorified.
Glorified, yep.
So when somebody, and man, I'm sorry, everybody. We had JD on here, not for me to talk, but I'm just, I
love it.
Yep.
So that's why when I see people saying, hey, pray, as like in West Virginia, there's some friends of ours back in Boone County or Logan County, West Virginia, in the coal fields, lost a 2.5-year-old little boy this week. So in my prayers, the way I pray is I pray for strength and for grace, and that the Holy Spirit would fill that void that is left empty now with that being gone from their heart. But moreover, that God be glorified through that situation.
Yeah.
Through this horrific event and of circumstances and all the hurt and all the anguish, as the grace and the mercy and the love is poured out from the Holy Spirit, please let it glorify God in some way. And to me, JD, that's what you've done. You've been able to do that for the most part. And I'm not trying to raise you up on a pedestal or anything. So don't think that. But I think it's really awesome how, really, without you even realizing what you're doing or how you've done it, is you found a way for God to be glorified through your circumstances.
Well, I appreciate that. And it's taken me a while to even get to, you think as a man, like you were explaining about, you tell your wife things, right? And it might be things you're thinking. So it takes a lot of courage, because you're telling your wife not just that she might get mad, but like what she's going to think of me if I'm, if I tell her these things and how my feelings are. She's going to think I'm either a terrible person, less of a man. So it takes a lot, but also on the other hand, it takes a lot for your wife. That shows me that you all have got a godly marriage, because she can accept you and help you through those things as well, right?
Here's a story. You're not going to believe this. It's just what you're saying. I'm going to give you a perfect example of what you just said. We built our forever home in Charlotte, North Carolina. We'd been there. I mean, we were only ended up in that house about 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, and now we're in our other forever house. Right? It's always a forever house until you leave it, and then you get your next forever house. So our back porch. And now listen, if this lady, I'm not going to mention any names, but she will know who she is. And I'm not saying this to hurt any feelings or anything, because she didn't do anything. There was nothing she done. So our back porch faced the woods. And that's why we did it, because there'd never been anybody build back there. And it brought us West Virginia. We got on our back porch. We could have coffee and listen to the birds or whatever. Well, our neighbor to the left of us, as we were facing out, they put in like a pool thing. And my wife knows she's an attractive woman. So I would go out there and try to read and, study and pray and stuff and just relax. Well, that's next door. Yeah. Brother, my wife ordered a blind to put on the side of the house to help me so that I wouldn't have to deal with that.
That's it.
Hey,
that's not that lady's fault. I mean, that's the way we live today.
Yeah, so that's right.
But it wasn't right for me to go say anything. So I did. My wife helped me do what we needed to do for me to have comfort and be outside.
Yeah, I've got to say, and I tell all my boys and like my kids and the kids I teach. I actually had one of my students that graduated last year. He FaceTimed me. He's out on the pipeline welding, and we were talking. Oh yeah, but it ain't nothing wrong with a little hard work.
That's right.
It teaches you a lot. I think he's learned a lot already, but it's the second look gets you, right?
Yes.
And then I've got one of the guys I radioed with in college. he's just a big comedian, but we were walking, we were at a rodeo, and he was like, "Oh," and I was like, "Travo, it's a second look at get you."
Keep walking. Keep walking.
Well, he said, "Well, I ain't took my eyes off of her yet." I won't take a second look. So, but yeah, it's those little things, right? The little discipline things. I will say that I was as content with my wife or it's maybe a loyalty or respect thing when I was married, when I was with my wife, Tracy, or with my wife, Lynn, I made it a point, like, I don't, you've got eyes. God gave us eyes and he made beautiful creatures, but like I tried not to acknowledge a woman that was, say, walking down the street or something like that out of respect for my wife. Cause I wouldn't want her doing the same thing either, and knowing that they probably did. But I learned that's probably one of the only things I've learned as far as discipline and women go. But I've learned that much out of respect that it's so true, man. That second look will absolutely get you. And I'm not perfect at it, but I'm about 98% on that whole second look thing, simply because of where my mind goes.
Yes.
I mean, oh boy, man, like I said earlier, I've always had trouble with women, like especially young, and it becomes, so I got saved, baptized, and the thing that was missing that was missing in my church, and I think it's missing in most, is it was like, what do I do now?
Discipleship.
I've got the Holy, it was the discipleship part. Like, would I have asked an elder or a deacon, like, what do I do when I'm looking at this girl lustfully? I don't know if I would have asked that, but nobody even offered that information now,
Yes.
And I think the devil shames us into thinking that, that's not right. And I mean, it's not right to lust after a woman, right? It's not right to do a lot of things. We're not supposed to covet our neighbor's things. We're not.
That's right.
I mean, we've got we don't live under the law, thank God, right? I mean, I can go and ask for forgiveness for lusting after that woman. But for me, it was what happened when I acted on that lust.
Yes.
So that bad part that's in between was all because of that second look that I took and I acted on it, right? So there's heartache after heartache from acting on that lust. We see the sin part, how fun it is, right?
Yes.
But we very rarely blame that sin part for the aftermath that takes place afterwards. And that's what I'm learning to see. That's one of the reasons I've been by myself for as long as I have and just now started dating. I had to learn to be good alone, be by myself. My cousin told me one time, she's like, you've just got to have a woman because you've never been by yourself. Well, dude, it was like somebody just stuck a knife in me because I'm a man. I can be good by myself. Buddy, when I tell you to be disciplined enough and the only thing that God needed me to do that, to grow closer to him, because after my second wife passed away with that aneurysm, I went through hell. I mean, It was bad.
I didn't know that either, JD.
Yeah. So I found Lynn and I, the lady that I started seeing and dating after Tracy passed away, our relationship was just, I was trying to get right with God, trying to get my family lined out. And we got married in December of 2018, or not December, November, 2 days after Thanksgiving, November 2018. And she died in the bed. What's your audience like? Is it mostly men here?
Yeah, you're good. We don't. I don't mark safe for children.
Okay. Well, she died while we were having sex. Passed away with a brain aneurysm in our bed, and on March 14th, I think it was. And dude, it was like, I can't even begin to tell you. It was, yeah, like you're, and precursor to that, right? So we got married because I thought that was going to fix everything, right? Well, our relationship wasn't good even after we got married. So here I had put myself and my kids, including my stepdaughter, in this, that thinking that I can fix it, and knowing that there's only one person can fix that, and that's God. I love that. Have y'all seen the triangle about the husband and the wife and God up top?
Yes.
And the closer you get to God, the closer you get.
That's right.
Well, we were down at the bottom of the triangle, down at the bottom of the pyramid. Now we were going to church. I was reading, studying, trying to do all that, but it takes two of you. Lynn had oh man, when I tell you horrendous childhood, I mean a horrendous childhood. And so a lot of things had festered over that. And
yep.
I truly believe that she had a, what do they call it? A TMI, like a mini stroke, like months earlier, because there was something that had just changed in her demeanor. I mean, my kids even noticed it. It was like it was just a different person. So from the time we had gotten married, we got married 2 days after Thanksgiving, right? 2018, and March 14th was the first time we had sex since our marriage, since we had gotten married. So that was the first, yeah. So I'm thinking finally we're having a breakthrough, and bam, she says, Jesus, oh Jesus. And I'm like, Lynn, stop saying that. And bam, she's like, something is not right. She said, something popped in my head. So I'm freaking out. I'm like, let's go to the doctor, let me call 911. And she's like, no, I'll be fine. Just lay here. Let me lay here a minute. And so I helped her. She said, I need to go to the bathroom. So I helped her to the bathroom, and she just throws up like bodily release at both ends. So I'm like, Lynn, I'm calling 911. She said, no, I feel a little bit better. She said, just let me lay down in the bed. So I put her back in the bed, and I cover her up. I get her a wet washcloth to put on her head. That's just something I grew up doing. That's what my mom always did. And so I go and I'm cleaning up the mess in the bathroom, and I take towels down. I've never told this story, and I don't even know if I should share it, but let's just say I took the towels down, came back up, felt just a presence on me, like there was 2 steps left, and when I was that second step up at the top of the stairs, I felt it like it was on me so bad, to the point to where I spoke out loud. I don't know what you are or who you are, but you are not going to have your way here. You need to get out of this house. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. Now, I said that out loud as I'm walking down the hall. I go back in, check on her. She said, I'm feeling a little bit better. And then maybe a minute later, she starts just foaming out the mouth. And so I'm freaking out. I holler for her daughter. I said, Mallory, call 911 right now. So she calls 911. It takes them, we lived out in the sticks. I mean, there's nothing, Somerville's just not, there's nothing around. So it takes probably a good 15 minutes for the ambulance to get there. So they're up there, I'm trying to put clothes on her because she's don't have any clothes on because of what we were doing. So I'm dressing her. Mallory's kind of helping me dress her, if I remember it right. And because I don't want all these EMTs to see my wife naked.
Right.
I'm sorry. I'm just very modest like that. So I'm dressing her. Well, they began to ask questions. Well, have y'all done any drugs? And I'm like, dude, we don't do drugs. Like we don't even drink. I told them exactly what was happening. So they start doing sternum rubs, trying to get her conscience. And I'm like, put her in the ambulance and let's go. Man, they fiddle farted around to the point to where they were debating on what to put her on, a board or a stretcher, if they could get the stretcher up. I get pissed off. I pick her up, carry her down the steps, put her on the stretcher, and said, get her to the darn hospital. And I mean, it was a nightmare. So take her to the hospital. She was there probably 45 minutes to an hour. And the doctor finally told me what had happened. And like, I'm just dazed and confused, like just shocked. So I'm like, what would you do if it was your wife? And he said, I would take her to Erlanger. I said, well, how do I get her there? And he said, well, we'll call a helicopter. We've got a chopper. I said, well, get her on the chopper and take her. Because if I'm understanding right, you're saying that she's got a brain bleed. Time is of the essence, right? I mean, you need to get that stopped. And I about lost it. Like, it's 20 minutes, a good 20, 30 minutes go by, maybe 30 minutes, maybe longer. And they still have yet to get her on this helicopter. And so I'm getting my stepdaughter.
Yes.
Yeah, like my ears are red, like I was telling you earlier. So I'm like, get her on the freaking chopper. What is the holdup? I could have already been halfway there, you know. But they get her on the stretcher and they're taking her. And I go back and I asked the doctor, I was like, look, I told him, told him what we were doing. I said, have I caused this? And he's like, no. He said, if it's an aneurysm, what I'm almost 100% sure that's what it is, it could have happened when she was drinking a glass of water or reading a book. He said, it's nothing that you've done, because like, I'm blaming myself, because here we've not had sex, right? From the time we're married, the night we do,
an aneurysm happens.
She dies.
Right.
So I'm thinking in the back of my mind, what have I done? What have I done?
Yep.
Then after that whole escapade, she's a donor. So I stay, I stay in a hospital with her because they have to keep her going until they find someone to take her organs. Lynn was a pretty healthy lady. So I sat in there, I think it was 4 days in the hospital with her. They're pumping her full of fluids, so she don't even look like herself. They're just, I mean, she's on a machine. And during all this time, there was some incredible, terrible accusations being made about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of hearing bits and pieces of it, but I'm seeing how my stepdaughter's reacting to me. And so I kind of know what's up, because Lynn and I did not, like I told you, when it was good, it was great. And when it wasn't, it was terrible.
It's not good. Yes.
You meet people in your life that bring out the worst in each other. That's exactly what Lynn and I had gotten to that point. It wasn't like that at first. It was great. But I told you things had changed, and I told you I remember what she was doing. I was sweeping the kitchen and she bent over with a dustpan, and I was sweeping it in this dustpan, and she was raising up and she said, something popped in my head. And I think that was that first little TMI, because running everything back, her demeanor changed from that point on. Now, our relationship wasn't great before then, but it declined after that pretty heavily. But like I say, I thought, well, we'll do the right thing, get married, and God will fix this. And those accusations that were made,
They can't be unmade.
they can't be unmade. I've actually forgiven the ones that have made them. But when I tell you, you know, like I was talking about that sermon earlier about, it's talking about the disciples in the boat in the storm and Jesus walking on the water, right? And Peter steps out of the boat. When he takes his eyes off of Jesus, he immediately starts sinking. And it also says that when Jesus got in the boat, and I think that's in John, but in same story in John. But when Jesus got in the boat, they were immediately ashore, right?
Yep.
So when that happened, and I'm thinking, I'm mad. Like, I'm mad because all these people are saying that I've done something and I've not. Like, I've been trying to live right, been trying to do right, been trying to get my relationship with God right. And dude, when I tell you, it's like, I don't know if y'all have ever been in a fight. I assume y'all have, but one of the first fights I got in that wasn't with one of my cousins in high school as I was older, I got in a fight in the McDonald's parking lot in Elizabethton, Tennessee. Had just got done playing a doubleheader, caught both doubleheaders, and I'm sitting there eating a quarter pounder of all things. I'm not even a quarter pounder guy, but this guy had been fooling around with his girlfriend, right? He comes in, taps me on the shoulder, says, meet me in the parking lot. So long story short, we go to the parking lot. But I read a right hook in, like all the way, like read it in, seen every bit of it. That's what God did to me in this moment. Like, I read every bit of it in, and I'm talking about, like, it addled me. Like, I can remember getting on my knees, crying, angry, mad, thinking, why? What have I done to deserve all this? But in hindsight, it took that right hook to get me going to where I needed to go, right? To get that relationship with God truly right. To learn to trust in Him, to know that everybody's going to go through storms. It's like you said earlier, John, everybody's got a story, right? And you said your story wasn't nothing much. Well, I guarantee you it is.
It is.
Everybody's got a story. I mean, you lost a child, dude. That's
huge.
Everybody's got a walk. It just looks a little different.
That's right.
But it took this getting me just like knocking me down to, even when my wife passed away and going through all the cancer stuff, there was nothing that buckled me like this. I had time to prepare for Tracy, I had time to kind of halfway prepare the kids. This was a sudden death, and it involved some really nasty, mean people that were making accusations that could have absolutely changed my life. I've got 4 kids to raise, right?
That's right.
You can't do that behind bars.
No.
Yep.
And especially with accusations. Thank God the cops did their investigation. I mean, an aneurysm's an aneurysm, dude. You can't.
That's it.
It is what it is. Did I probably contribute to the stress levels of everything over the 6 years that we were together, or at least the 4, because year and a half, 2 years was great. Yeah, I guarantee you I caused a lot of anxiety, and because I got it. Dude, you look at my face, man, you see stress scars. You see, I've had it, but I've learned after that. I still get stressed, don't get me wrong, but man, I live every day in a God, I'm up. It's a great day. Now, I'm not, rainbows ain't shooting out of my butt every morning, but I'm thankful. And man, I'm telling you, sometimes it takes something so drastic to just slap the crap out of you and say, hey, wake up.
Wake up.
You need to be doing this.
Yes.
So all of my story, I've never really, Chad and Blake asked me to share that story, right? Or to share my story. And it was a very vulnerable time for me because it wasn't too terribly long after Lynn had passed away and I was going through all that stuff. But I hate social media. Oh my God. The only thing I like about social media is Facebook Marketplace. I love to get on there. I can get addicted to Facebook Marketplace. There ain't no doubt about that. But, I still feel the pressure. Like, should I try to post something encouraging? Should I? And then the old devil's beating you down. Man, you don't know. There's people think you're a terrible person. You know, and that's another thing, the whole hypocritical, you know, people say, well, they say they're a Christian, but I've seen them do this and do that. Well, hey, they ain't none of us perfect.
Nope.
You try to live perfect. That's what
Strive for. Try to.
That's right. It's the forgiveness and to turn away from that sin, right? That's where the wisdom comes from. To like, yeah, okay, I did wrong. I'm doing wrong. I've got to turn. I've got to turn from it. So
the guy that I helped run a recovery group with, he just made it. Me and him was talking, and he said, you know, we read about David and and Bathsheba and him standing on the rooftop staring over there. Well, today's rooftop is social media. And just like you said, it's that second look.
It's a second look it gets you. Yep. But I don't know. So I was standing outside working cars one day when I was teaching at the middle school, and the principal is he's a phenomenal human, just an outstanding guy. And we were talking about something, and I mean, it's stuck with me. That's been 4 years ago, I guess. And, you know, all these stories, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, you hear about how people have changed and done. He said, you know, just a few times, I'd just like to hear about somebody that got it right the first time. And in my head, I'm thinking, wow, like, you know, is he just done it all right? But he was basically saying he gets tired of hearing how people done wrong and now they're doing good. But
here's the problem with that, JD. There's only one that got it right the first time.
That's exactly right.
And they put him on a cross.
Exactly. And if I would have been thinking and had my wits, was the only one I know about that is that did it that way was Jesus. And
that's right.
But yeah, everybody's got their story. Everybody's got stuff that they go through, you know, and I just wonder if I've not been through all this crap I want God to use me to help somebody. And like I said, with my daughter's, whatever you want to call him, friend.
Yep.
If it took all of that just to get him
to turn,
to know God, to love
Absolutely.
God, and to have eternal life.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll do. Would I want to walk through the hell that I've been through? Because, I mean, I'm not going to say it's been easy, and God's been right there holding my hand the whole time, because I know he has, but sometimes I have ran from God.
Oh, yes.
And it's just one of them things to where that's been, let's see, 6 years ago, 2019, March 2019, so almost 6 years. I have done nothing. That's one thing I love about Phil Robertson, right? Phil ran as hard after, in his words, basically paraphrase, yep. Phil ran as hard after the devil as he could. When he made a decision to love God and love Jesus, he vowed that he would run as hard towards Jesus and God as he could.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm trying to do now is run. I mean, it took me to my 40s to figure that out. Phil says that it took him forever, but he was in his late 20s. I wish I would have had it all figured out and run straight to God as hard as I could and live for him like Phil has done. Look at what he's done and the life that he's led and how it's impacted. It's not impacted thousands, dude. It's impacted millions.
Globally.
That story, his life,
I'm part
honest
of
and truly, dude, it changed my family.
Yes.
To see someone that truly lives for God. I'm not saying he's perfect, because I mean, nope. I know he's human. Not. But golly, what a testimony! And that's what I want. I want people. I want to lead people towards God, and that's my main thing. And if I've done anything in this world, you really have the chance to lead your kids to God, right?
That's right.
They've seen the bad dad.
Yep.
They've seen the good dad.
Yep.
And they know that the good dad part is way better than the bad, angry dad, right?
That's right.
So they've seen that change in me, kind of like Phil's story a little bit, right? Phil was not a good person. He was a heathen, as he would put it.
That's right.
Well, I wasn't as bad as did the things that Phil did to make that bad. I was just angry, dude, and just one thing I did learn through that is words. You just can't take them back.
No,
you cannot take them back. They hurt way worse than anything. And I've learned to control my words a little bit, and thus has controlled my anger. But one thing I struggle with is, I told you I'm kind of a loner, right?
Yep.
So one thing I do pray for, I always pray every morning, let me be the light for somebody. Let God, let these kids see your love through me.
That's right.
But the thing that's missing, like I'm so serious a lot of times, I don't think kids see the joy. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And that
yes.
joy is effective. It's very effective. Yes, it's contagious. People love the joy part. So I struggle with that. So if y'all ever think you want to pray for me, pray that that I'm able to show the joy.
Yes.
Because I do struggle. I have good days and the joy comes out for sure. But and it's not that I don't love God or that the day's going bad. It's just that I'm focused on something, and
that's what you're focused on.
Yeah, it's just, I think it's just that rougher side of me, but
JD, what I have been, and I do, and I will continue. I've had you and your family in my prayers.
Well, thank you very much.
Since we've got, come to know you, especially now. But I wonder, what will our reaction be one of these days when it's revealed to us the people who covered us in prayer that we had no idea was ever praying for?
Oh, God, I've thought about that I don't know how many times. I know one lady that's downstairs right now. My mom lives with me. Dude, she has covered me in prayer so much. And you never know. That's one, Blake, Chad's brother, taught me this as well. You'll hear somebody say, I'll pray for you. Well, if I say I'm going to pray for you, I'm going to pray for you. And Blake has taught me to, well, okay, let's pray.
I know.
You'd see people's face would be like, but
they never say no.
Wait? No, they don't. They do not. But that you're right, John. That is, if I knew, I would love to see what's been prayed over me, and to know how that has affected my life. I know the impact God's had, and you hear the term, well, God ain't gonna put you in anything that you can't handle. Well, if you don't have God, yeah, He will.
Yeah.
That's just like this story right here. So that they were with God, and still was scared and terrified, in doubt. Yes. And it wasn't until he got in the boat and they ended up on land immediately that they were. So it's proof, if you don't have God, and God was walking towards Peter, right? Peter was walking towards him. God will meet you, but you got to allow him to meet you. You've got to meet him in the middle somewhere, and he will. You can get through anything. Philippians 4:13, you're exactly right. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yes, absolutely. But it's that Christ strengthening me part that people forget all the time.
Because in our weakness, until we get weak, He can't be strong, because if we're strong, we're doing it on our own.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. And you see people get through things in moments in time, like, what's the Christian F word is fine. I'm fine.
Right. Right.
So you see that a lot. But you never, like, if you know somebody's actually giving something to God, and man, they're like, when they say that God's got this, and you see them walk it out, it's such a testimony, right? Yes. But the fleshly side, for me, I still do it, man. Like, there's things that, like, that happens throughout the day, or stuff that's going on in my life. And I think it might have been Joyce Myers, but she said one of the best prayers is, God help. God help me. Right?
That's simple. Yes.
It's just that simple. So I say God help me a lot. And man, you wouldn't believe, like,
as a
sometimes
teacher,
you
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Oh, I do. Trust me. It's, I said it today, actually. We got midterms finals this week, and it's a week before Christmas, and it's like Friday the 13th full moon, and the whole 9 yards wrapped up into one deal. But, yeah, so just those little prayers. But I think it's just that relationship God's wanting. He just wants you to go to him, right?
That's
like
right.
He's asking you, look, just let me in. Just let me help you. And the human side will take it back over occasionally. I have the times that I've, like, just absolutely just been like, here, God, it's yours. I'm done. Man, it always works out great. You know what I mean? Or maybe not the way you think, but it works out good.
It works out.
It works out in his will, his timing. So,
there's the word is, Scripture says it's the bread of life. The word of God is the bread of life. And the whole time the disciples, how many times through the time that the disciples walked with Christ on earth, how many times did he feed them? How many times did he take a loaf of bread and he broke it? He did it at the Last Supper. He took the piece of bread and he broke it. And so he gets crucified. He goes to the grave. He goes to the tomb. The tomb, the stone's removed. He comes back. He's walking among them. And lo and behold, he's on the street with two of them. And they don't know who he is. He hasn't revealed himself.
They don't even know who he is.
Right? They don't even know who he is.
Yeah.
But he sits down with them, right? There's a great lesson here. He sits down with them. And what does he do to open their eyes? He takes the bread.
He breaks the bread.
Says when he broke the bread, their eyes were open and knew who he was.
Opened.
So if we take this each and every day and we break it open, he's going to reveal himself to us and tell us who he is and guide our ways. Yep. But if we don't do that and we're saying, well, God, where are you? I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm right here.
Yeah.
That's like Jason and we're saying this week on the podcast. We are the church. There's not a service until we get there. Yeah. We are the service. It's a church. It's a building. It's 2x4s drywall or metal studs, whatever you got. It's nothing until the body of Christ, which is us.
Walks inside.
Yeah. And man, I'm telling you, this has been awesome, bro.
I'm sorry, I'm very long-winded. I look at the time.
No.
An hour and 33 minutes. I'm like,
No, that's why we like to do Fridays, because nobody has to get back, or Saturdays because nobody has to get up and go to work. You probably do. But before we get off of here, I do want to tell you this. Todd he should have had chaffs and a cowboy hat this week on the farm that he works.
I've been working with yearlings all week long.
And he's also a welder.
No kidding.
Yeah, I left the fabrication and steelwork industry after 30 years and earning my CWI, and took a short break and went to work on a small ranch, and now dealing with cattle, among other things on the ranch that I take care of.
So where at, Todd?
I'm in Clewiston, Florida, which is the
Okay.
south end of Lake Okeechobee,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then another probably 20 minutes south of Clewiston is where the ranch is, and it's
You're in
basically
cowboy country, son.
yes,
Yeah, them Florida
Florida
crackers.
crackers. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love Florida. People have no idea of the cattle
We're
numbers
number
in
two.
Florida.
We're number two
Yeah.
in cowboys. I mean, in
Yeah.
cows.
And cattle. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Oh, yeah. I used to work down there. I used to work for Prefert.
Okay.
And Florida was my territory, and I hated it when I started, but man, I love Florida. Love it around Okeechobee.
All right.
The,
Maybe you have to
the,
come down sometime.
The guy that's over our cattle, he that's where he's from, is Okeechobee.
yeah. Yeehaw Junction. I've got some friends that live in Yeehaw Junction.
Yep. See, I'm an hour and a half south of Yeehaw Junction.
Okay. All right. I love your country down there. Let me tell. We don't have to put this on there, but so you've got a pretty heavily populated Cuban population down there.
Yes.
So I sold a rodeo arena to this guy, like the whole arena. Like there was four bucking chutes, alleyway. I mean the whole thing. It was like, I want to say 60 grand. He had paid like 20 and owed like 48. So I meet the truck down there and I'm helping them set all this stuff up. And this joker speaks zero English, right? Super nice dude, zero English.
Right.
And so he's wanting to pay me. So he pays me. Now I'm in Okeechobee. You know all them sugarcane fields all around through there.
Yeah.
And so I call the office and I'm like, look, this guy, I can't understand him, and he's wanting to pay me in cash. I said, I do not feel comfortable driving from Okeechobee, Florida to Georgia with $48,000 worth of cash. Do you understand? And they were like, no, why? I mean, we take cash. It's not like we're not going to bill him. It's not an under the table deal. I said, they could put me, there's probably 10 people here watching this dude pay me.
Watching this happen, yes.
Yeah. So I said, there is miles of sugarcane fields, brother. I said, they can make a phone call and I will be in one of them sugarcane fields, be gator food, and they will be $48,000 richer. And they're like, look, take the money and get home. I had an old Dodge Dually extended cab in, and I had a 4-inch straight pipe from a turbo back in that joke. You know how them old Dodges,
Oh, yeah.
just, whoa.
Oh, yeah. They rolled
The
down the road.
whole way. I did not stop until there's a truck stop up. It's right outside of Ocala. I did that was my first stop. I was about to pee all over myself, but I was like, I ain't stopping. I always travel with a pistol and stuff, but I was terrified.
Oh, yeah. You've been on Google Maps looking down from a satellite. You'd have seen a black smoke trail. You could just follow.
Oh, dude, I was rolling coal, brother. They wasn't going to catch me, and it was all dirt. There's tons of dirt roads.
What's deaf? I don't put deaf. I don't put no deaf in this trail. Make sure they know where I'm at.
No, man, I was out of there, buddy. And I stopped there and I had an auxiliary tank in the back. That was I filled up and I left right there and drove all the way to Cedartown, Georgia. Walked through the door, put that money on the kitchen table, and Tracy's like, what's this? I said, I'll tell you later. I'm going to bed. I was wore out.
Yes.
Yeah. But I love your country down there, man. It's a different way of life.
It is.
There's some good people in Florida, man.
I'm
I love it.
Hey, when we stop this recording, JD, just hang out a minute because I have to make sure everything downloads. Okay. But let's pray real quick. Father in heaven.
Yes, sir.
I just thank you so much for your love and for your grace and your many blessings that you bestow upon us. Thank you so much for JD and for Todd and their families and the way that you've intervened. Father, tonight I want to pray for wisdom and knowledge, interpretation, application, and discernment of your word, that it will protect our hearts, our minds, our souls, our spirits, guide our steps, tame our tongues. And Father, that it would protect our eyes and our ears as we've heard JD and both Todd speak of our weaknesses in this flesh. Create in us a clean and new heart each and every day, Father. Give us the strength to be compassionate, yet bold and unashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
That's right.
And may we know you more today than yesterday, every day of our life. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I'm going to get us out of here real quick. If I can find my mouse.